Hello, and welcome to George Mason University and the Farr's Crossroads Historic Site here on the university's Fairfax campus. I'm Blake Meyers, and I'm a member of the Bull Run Civil War Roundtable, an organization that has been partnering with George Mason University since 2015 to educate the university's community on the history of Farr's Crossroads and to preserve and interpret this site. Behind me, you're looking at a Civil War earthen fortification known as a redoubt. Redoubt is an enclosed circular fortification designed for visibility and defense in all directions. A redoubt's parapets, its walls, are typically 4 to 6 feet in height. This redoubt is 80 feet in diameter, and its parapet height today ranges from 2 to 3 feet. Its original height being significantly reduced due to erosion resulting from Mother Nature and Father Time. The site is located in the southwest corner of the Fairfax main campus between the intersection of Braddock and Ox Roads and Parking Lot K. At the entrance to the site from Parking Lot K is one of 2 historical markers that were recently installed in May of 2021 as part of the George Mason University History Trail. This marker has 2 interpretive panels on it. The front panel focuses on the history of Farr's Crossroads and the 2 historic roadways and the site's significance during the Civil War. The backside panel provides information on the Civil War fortifications that were constructed on and near the site. The second historical marker on this site, located next to the redoubt, provides information on the redoubt itself and its use during the Civil War, and on a nearby corduroy road whose remnants were discovered along Ox Road in 2014 and 2015. In 1819, this land was part of 183 acres of farmland inherited by Richard Radcliffe Farr. Richard and his family and their descendants lived on and worked this land that surrounds the intersection of today's Braddock and Ox Roads for more than 100 years. With the Farr family's longtime ownership and farming of this land surrounding the intersection became known as Farr's Crossroads. This was the intersection for 2 historic roads. Ox Road was originally known as the Courthouse Road, a road built to enable citizens living in the southern portion of Fairfax County to travel to the county's first courthouse, which from 1742 to 1752 was located near what we know today as Tyson's Corner. Braddock Road was originally known as Mountain Road, a road built in the 1740s for the transport of goods to and from the Shenandoah Valley and the seaport of Alexandria. In 1755, enterprising locals along the road began calling the road Braddock's Road. It was their attempt to entice British General Edward Braddock's use of the road in his military expedition west against the French during the French and Indian War, and in doing so to gain improvements of the road to their benefit. Though neither General Braddock nor his troops ever set foot on this road, the name Braddock's Road stuck, and even today the road remains Braddock Road. So how did this site become part of the university? In 1958, descendants of Richard Radcliffe Farr offered 146 acres of the Farr Tract, the very land that we are on and surrounded by, to the city of Fairfax as a permanent site for what was then George Mason College of the University of Virginia. Construction planning began in early 1960, and classes began on this campus in the fall of 1964. This redoubt was constructed as part of an early warning line in June of 1861 by soldiers from Colonel Robert Rhodes' 5th Alabama Infantry Regiment, part of the newly forming Confederate Army of the Potomac. As an early warning post, the redoubt was constructed here due to its strategic location. It overlooked and therefore could control the intersection of the 2 well-traveled roads, and it was on the high ground. In the 1800s, this hilltop was the 2nd highest natural elevation in all of Fairfax County. The redoubt was part of a series of fortifications constructed in the summer of 1861 along Mountain Road to monitor and inhibit any westward movement of federal forces coming from Washington, D.C. and Alexandria, providing early warning to the Confederate Army forming in the vicinity of Manassas Junction, what we know today as historic Manassas. This redoubt changed hands several times during the war and would, from November of 1862 through the end of the war, serve a similar early warning purpose for federal forces guarding the approaches to Washington, D.C. Mountain Road and the Courthouse Road were used extensively during the Civil War by the military forces of both sides. In the summer of 1861, troop movements were here prior to the Battle of First Manassas at Bull Run, and in the fall of 1862, federal troops used it en route to the Centerville and south through Warrenton to the Battle of Fredericksburg. And in the spring of 1863, Confederate troop movements en route to Pennsylvania prior to the Battle of Gettysburg. Throughout the war, Mountain Road was a primary route from Alexandria to strategic Centerville fortifications, and Courthouse Road was the primary route for transporting military supplies from the supply depot at Fairfax Station to federal forces stationed in and around Fairfax Courthouse. Though no major battles were fought from this redoubt, it witnessed a number of skirmishes throughout the war, typically fighting between opposing cavalry and infantry units moving through and or guarding this strategic section of Fairfax County. Turning to today in the ongoing work at Farr's Crossroads, as you can see, George Mason University has done a tremendous job in conjunction with the Bull Run Civil War Roundtable to preserve and interpret this site. The access trail, the cleared redoubt, the historical markers, and the interpretive trail around the redoubt are key pieces of an ongoing project to preserve and interpret this site for the George Mason community and for the general public. The two historical markers highlight the history and the historical significance of Farr's Crossroads, the redoubt, and the adjacent Corduroy Road. And from an educational perspective, beginning in 2016, Professor Christopher Hamner's Civil War and Reconstruction History class has conducted an annual class and educational tour of this site. Classes and tours led by members of the Bull Run Civil War Roundtable. Thank you for joining us today, and we trust you've enjoyed the tour and the overview of Farr's Crossroads and learning about the site's history. Come and visit this site. Enjoy the walk, explore the site, and learn more about the history and the significance of Farr's Crossroads.